It says Grambling State hires ex-Baylor football coach Art Briles as offensive coordinator. Art Briles, let's get into it. Straight into it, Art Briles, who was fired by Baylor as their head coach in 2016 following the university's investigation into a campus-wide allegations of sexual assault, has been hired as Grambling State's offensive coordinator. Athletic director Trayvean Scott confirmed to ESPN on Thursday. Former Cleveland Brown head coach Hugh Jackson was hired by Grambling State head coach back in December. Briles, who is 66, has been out of college coaching since May of 2016 when Baylor officials suspended him with the intent to terminate for his role after sexual assault allegations were made against students, including football players. He later reached an undisclosed financial settlement with Baylor, where he coached from 2008 to 2015, posting a, look at this, 65-37 record. This is what I mean by he's a damn good coach, and winning a share of back-to-back Big 12 titles, both in 2013 and 2014. Not to mention he coached the Heisman Trophy winner, Robert Griffin. Not to mention he coached a ton of talented players, including Christian Coleman, Robert Griffin, Sean Oakman, Josh Gordon, etc., etc. He coached a ton of those guys down at Baylor, like a ton of NFL players. Scott told, this is from Trayvean Scott. Now, this is where we get some good stuff, some good insight to what's taking place at Grambling. Athletic director Trayvean Scott, he talked with ESPN on Thursday that he spent about 10 days researching Briles before formally supporting Jackson's decision to hire him. He said Jackson has autonomy to bring forward coaching candidates, and Scott vetted Briles after Jackson suggested him. Quote, "I'm rooted in fact," Scott told ESPN's Pete Thamel. Quote, "I know a lot of things are said and done. We felt it was appropriate to give him a chance to really redeem himself after understanding where the facts lie." Scott said Briles, quote, "had a couple of other opportunities to coach right now," and stressed that the school, quote, "did its homework on his past." He said he'd spoken to Briles multiple times, and through his research, he was, quote, "able to move forward in support of Jackson's recommendation." Quote, "I think the guy just wants to coach and lead men," Scott told ESPN when he asked specifically about what made him comfortable about hiring Briles when many other schools and organizations weren't. "We're not talking about a perfect situation or devaluing things done in the past." This is what A.D. Scott said about devaluing things in the past and how it affected people. He's sympathetic and empathetic about what went on. Now it goes on. So for those of you who don't know, as we spoke about it a little bit, in a previous broadcast, and I'll kind of refresh you for those of you who don't know, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, tell a friend to come on in. So Art Briles was at Baylor. He's winning a bunch of games. He's got Heisman Trophy winners. He's winning Big 12 titles. He's doing all of this, doing all that, just running it up at Baylor. And then there was, as we read, a bunch of campus-wide sexual assaults taking place at Baylor. Now, you have to remember, Baylor's a private institution. Baylor's a religious institution. Campus-wide sexual assaults, campus-wide R-words, that ain't going to fly. And it was alleged and later kind of determined, and we're going to read it in this article, that there were players on the football team that took place in some of these campus-wide sexual acts against these women, and Art Briles kind of swept it up under the rug. Art Briles didn't really do what he should have done. He didn't really report on it in a timely manner. He didn't really act the way he should have. If that was his daughter, he probably would have acted different. If that was his niece, his auntie, his cousin, his whatever, he probably would have acted different. But because it wasn't, he didn't act the way that he should have acted as the head football coach of Baylor. So that's what got him in some trouble. Now, we'll read in this article, because it's going to state it in here, he didn't commit any NCAA violations. He didn't commit any violations. So if you ever read that his lawyer, I got this pimple right here, it's bad. If you ever read where his lawyer says Art Briles exonerated and Art Briles didn't commit any crimes as far as NCAA goes, that is technically true. The NCAA came out and said, no, he didn't violate any of our rules. Just what he did wasn't ethical. Just what he did wasn't cool. Not report or to not do it in a timely manner as far as sexual assaults to women, that is a bad look. That isn't good. Let's continue reading. So, just don't hear me talk about it. We can actually read about it, about what took place with Art, Baylor, and et cetera, et cetera. So he's got the backing of Hugh Jackson. Obviously, he's got the backing of A.D. Scott down there in Grambling. It says in August, the NCAA placed Baylor on 4 years probation. But here's the part. But ruled that Briles and the university didn't violate its rules in their inaction. So think about it. Words are big. Words, context, words always matter. Their inaction, meaning they didn't violate any rules. So at that time, think about how crazy this is, guys. I want you to really think is because the reason why I'm dissecting this so much, Grand Family, I know I love y'all, but I just want y'all to know what y'all getting into when you hire a guy like Art Briles. Hell yeah, you're getting a hell of a football coach, but you're getting all of this with it. And there is a reason. Ooh, this storm's going crazy out here. There is a reason why nobody would touch Art Briles. Like, he just wasn't this good of a coach, and nobody would touch him for no reason. So you, at this moment, back in 2016, you could get in trouble for giving a student athlete a freaking cheeseburger or a new shirt or some shoes or whatever, put a few dollars in their pocket. You could get in trouble for that. But if sexual assaults took place on your campus and one of your players was allegedly a part of that sexual assault and you didn't say anything, there's no rules violation there. There's no rules violation there. To me, that's a problem. To me, that is a major problem. Say what you want. I don't think that's cool, man. I just don't. But let's continue on. It says, let's read this again. In August, the NCAA placed Baylor on 4 years probation, but ruled that Briles University didn't violate its rules by their inaction. The Committee of Infraction said it could not conclude that Baylor or Briles violated NCAA rules. By what? By failing to report allegations of sexual and interpersonal violence committed on campus. So they're admitting, yes, Baylor and Briles failed to report allegations of sexual and interpersonal violence committed on campus. This is who you hired, Grambling. I just want to make all of this is completely transparent. This is public record. This is not new information. This is what was out there when A.D. Scott and Hugh Jackson decided to hire Art Briles. This is who you're getting. I just want to make sure all of this is transparent. So let's continue on. As the committee noted that while former Baylor president described the school's handling sexual violence as a, quote, colossal operational failure. They admitted that it was a colossal operational failure. Current NCAA rules says they weren't in trouble. In 2018, Briles coached in Italy. He coached in the CFL in 2017, and then he coached at a high school. In February 2019, then Southern Miss, Southern Miss, you got you swag people, Mississippi people, y'all know who Southern Miss is. Southern Miss coach Jay Hobson attempted to hire Briles as his offense coordinator, but Hobson was overruled by the university president. It says then Hobson resigned, and that is what it is. Then Briles coached at a high school both in 2019 and 2020. Baylor's investigation into the handling of sexual violence complaints amid publicity of several sexual assaults and domestic violence. So here's some of the things that they're claiming, it's kind of proven, that Briles kind of knew about and then just didn't say anything. Domestic violence involving former football players culminated in May of 2016 when the firing of Briles and the motion of the president and the suspension of the athletic director. Let's see. Let me see. Okay, so it says, according to Pepper Hamilton, who was the lawyer in all of this, it says, quote, reflect significant concerns about the tone and culture within the Baylor football program as it relates to accountability for all forms of athletic misconduct. It was also faulted the football team for not adequately vetting transfer students, including former Boise State defensive end Sam Ukacha and former Penn State defensive end Sean Oakman, who were accused of sexual assault. Now, Sean Oakman eventually got acquitted, but Ukacha was convicted of sexual assaulting a former Baylor. So this is where Briles got in some trouble right here. This was the big one, the Ukacha guy. Ukacha was convicted of sexually assaulting a former Baylor women's soccer player in October 2013. He transferred to Baylor after being dismissed by Boise State in 2013. So think about this. He got dismissed from Boise State. It says Boise State never gave the details, but they're kind of hinting that he got in some trouble doing some similar stuff up there. Then he comes to Baylor and he sexually assaults a woman on the soccer team. It's rough. It's rough. Oakman, who transferred to Baylor after being kicked off the Penn State team, was accused of sexually assaulting a grad student at Baylor in April 2016, but a jury eventually acquitted him. Now, this was the big one. This is the big one that they're saying, are kind of covered up right here. It says in January 2014, former Baylor player Tevin Elliott was convicted of, I'm not even gonna say the word because I ain't trying to get demonetized. R-word, a student at an off-campus party in 2012. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison and fined $10,000. Elliott was also accused of physically assaulting or sexually assaulting 4 other women while he was enrolled at Baylor. That's rough. That is pretty sick, guys. That's pretty sick. It's pretty rough. You know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't good. Says in an interview with ESPN back in September 2016, Briles said he accepted responsibility for the Baylor football program's poor handling of sexual assault of allegations involving players. Says, quote, there was some bad things that happened under my watch, Briles said, and for that, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I'm going to learn. I'm going to get better. Briles said he understood why victims of players on his team would be upset with him. He said, quote, I tell them I'm extremely sorry. It just appalls me that somebody could victimize another human being. He said, and there's no place in society for it, and I've never condoned it and never will put up with it. And so this is so when you hear people, kind of real shaky on Art Briles, that's why. I just want to so for all those yo, what's the big deal with Art Briles? Why are people upset? We just got a hell of a football coach. That is why people were so shaky on Art Briles. There is a lot of baggage there.